Vegas around town. I have a special guest today, Brian Jenson, or should I actually say Lieutenant Colonel Brian Jenson, as of last week.
Yes, as of.
Congratulations, dude. Thank you for your service.
No problem, bro.
I appreciate everything you guys do. Like, I understand the sacrifice you guys make as far as time, just a lot of things. We'll get into a little bit of the military stuff. And Brian's also a techie DJ. I just showed him my man cave setup of all the gear.
Absolutely.
And I had Brian's wife last week. That's how I heard of you, Maggie Jenson. And she just actually texted me about a client researching her and found the podcast.
Oh, yeah. She's knocking it out the park. So
she, I guess she was doing some research about Maggie on her behavior business and fitness and health stuff. And she had logged on and did some research on Google and found the podcast. And I guess it sealed the deal.
Dude,
she
that's
got
awesome.
a client.
Yeah,
so,
thank you. Thank you for helping her out.
I mean, I'm surprised people listen to this thing.
No, man. No. Everybody knows about it. It's the hot thing in Vegas now.
Dude, I love it. So let's jump into it. And, I had your wife on the as a guest a couple weeks ago, and she kind of told me the backstory of you guys being in the military.
Right.
You met in Kansas?
Yes, Kansas City. Yep.
How I want to hear your side of that story were you in the military then?
Yes. So prior to that, I'd been living in Europe for about 10, 11 years. I did about 8 years in Germany, about 2.5, 3 in England. So I was around Europe for a while. I was living in Cambridge, England, downtown, partying in London, DJing all over, doing all that nonsense while still being in the military.
How young or old were you back in the day?
Let's see. So I left the States when I was 23, 24.
Yeah.
And I came back when I was like 35.
Oh, cool. I did that too. I mean, I lived, I was living in the Philippines at the time.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
And then I moved to Guam at 21.
Oh, wow.
Which is a military.
Yeah. And we got a little base out there
state,
too.
Or not even a state, it's U.S. territory, right?
Right.
You got the Air Force base on top. And then the Army base, I think in the north, one of the two.
Yeah.
But it's literally a party town.
Yeah.
So my dad was in the Navy, and I understand. I've been around the military my whole life too.
Oh yeah.
And then going to Guam, music, strip clubs, music, getting drunk.
Yep.
Hurricanes,
yes,
typhoons,
pretty much.
So I can imagine like the Europe scene was what they called it raves back in the day.
Yeah, been to a couple, 2 or 12 of those.
They called them EDM was called raves, I think, back in the 90s.
Between Ibiza, Prague, Berlin, you name it, been there,
for sure.
Checked those blocks many a time. So
you were already DJing then?
So no, I was living in Germany when I moved to England. Maggie, sweetie, I know she's shaking her head right now because she knows where this Pandora's box is going. I was fighting in Europe, actually, boxing and MMA, and
crazy.
I started refereeing fights and training fighters, and was working with a couple British fighters and working out some gyms there. And so I got into what we call like EP, executive protection, was like bodyguarding essentially some folks around London and other parts of England, and got into kind of a members only club over there called 12A. It was exclusive, I forget
that
what
was
it was.
The bodyguarding.
Yeah, and I kind of got in.
Company? Is it a company?
It was with a guy named Jay Cruz, working with his company and a few others and all that over there. So when a lot of times, like when American celebrities came over, artists, singers, rappers, all that type of stuff, I would kind of be the American figurehead for the team, escort them around, etc. And then I was training some of England and working the corners of some of England's big boxers, some of their heavyweight champs, etc.
Wow.
And so I got into 12A that way. Like I started hanging out in there a little bit and help. I guess they kind of introduced me to the folks up there.
Okay.
And so I did a little bit of security stuff for 12A for a little bit, doorman stuff for some private events.
And all this time you were still in the military?
Yeah, I was still in the military.
So they let you have another job in the military?
So I was kind of doing it in my off time. It was kind of like I was doing this on like nights and weekends and stuff.
Oh, you were just hustling.
So it was just single guy over there with nothing else to do. So instead of playing video games and stuff, I was out running amok and training fighters and
that's a whole scene in itself, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of got into 12A, and I met the head DJ there, is a guy named Chris Hawks. So shout out to Chris, brother, love you. But Chris was a big DJ, DJ'd all over England, all over Europe, was a resident DJ, had DJ'd Space and Ibiza, etc.
Yeah.
And so became buddies with him, and kind of one night asked him, like, hey, you ever taught anybody to DJ? I'd always loved music. And he was like, yeah, you ever teach anybody ever to fight or box? And I was like, yeah, like, let's swap.
Shit.
And so he was like, yeah, just let me know when. I was like, all right, cool. What are you doing tomorrow night? And he was like, I'm busy tomorrow night. I was like, okay, well, what about the next night? I can't then. Okay, well then you tell me what night you have free. So I went over the following week, met over at his house. He kind of was like, hey, I'm just going to teach you how to beat mash up some beats, just kind of show you some of the very basics. And that should take most of the night.
Were you still doing turntables at that time?
Yeah, so he taught me on vinyl first. He's like, hey, I'm going to teach you vinyl, so I'm not going to teach you all the like special sync buttons and all the extra bells and whistles. I'm going to teach you like
so
the
you're
basics
old school,
first.
man.
Yeah.
You understand it. Yeah.
So I can understand both. I can speak both and do both. So
wow. Now you just plug in a USB stick.
Yeah, exactly. So that night, I was supposed to be there. I got there probably like 6, 7 p.m. and he thought it was going to take all night. And I think because a lot of boxing and fighting, you work off of beats and counts and that type of stuff.
Gotcha.
So picking up the beats really came supernatural. So within like an hour or so, he was sitting on the couch drinking a beer, just calling out songs, and I was loading them and then and just matching them. Not perfect, but I was pretty darn close.
Sure.
So
did you have any musical background before?
None.
Wow.
No, I tried.
So that's just like in you. Like
I'd always loved music.
I talked to a lot of drummers. They say rhythm's in you or not. You know. Yeah. So you probably just have it, like you said, on the fighting
and boxing, and
it's all about pacing and rhythm and feeling out stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so interesting.
So I went from there. So by the end of the night, he was like showing me all these other, bells and whistles and stuff on the turntables. So that was, I want to say like a Tuesday, Wednesday night. That Saturday night, Chris was back DJing at 12A. So I went up there to go see him, just kind of check in, hang out and stuff for a bit. And he was like, hey, I got to go, I got to go hit the head, I got to go to the bathroom. Can you watch my turntables, watch the decks real quick? And I was like, yeah, no problem. So I was just kind of hanging out at the turntables and sitting there and I'm looking at the time, like ticking down on the song, like 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, minute and a half. And I was like, crap, where's Chris? So I quick just threw the headset on and like mixed in the next song. And then another song, I think I maybe did 2 or 3 songs. All of a sudden he walks around the other side of the bar with like a pint of beer, lap point. I got you.
He threw you in the water.
Yeah. And he was like, I just wanted to see what you were going to do. And like, he's awesome. He's a perfectionist. So he's phenomenal.
Was there a big crowd?
Yeah, there was there at 12, it was like a members only speakeasy club and all that. So there's probably like 80, 90 people and it wasn't a huge place, but it was like a proper cocktail bar.
That's a crazy visual. Like just seeing you in Europe and learning how to DJ at the same time you're in the army, right?
Yep, still in the army.
In the army still, and you're DJing, you're fighting.
Yeah.
Young kid that sounds like a perfect night out.
It was a lot, but on the other hand, I had nothing else going on. So
yeah,
So
how long were you in Europe for? That's Germany, right?
That was in England. So that was
England?
around 2013, 2012, 2013 in England when all that happened. So, but I left the States in 2005 and I came back in like late 2015, 2016-ish. Mm-hmm. So you were, excuse my ignorance, I don't really know the rankings. So do you start off as just a regular, what's the proper term? So I actually went to West Point to the military academy for college. I played football as a strong safety for Army in college. So when I graduated there, I graduated as a second lieutenant. And so I went to my officer basic course in Lawton, Oklahoma at Fort Sill. Went over to Germany right after that, was there for a few months, then went off to Iraq, and then I kind of did the Iraq for a year, Germany a year, Iraq a year, Germany a year, Afghanistan a year, Germany a year,
wow.
Then into England, so.
Wow. So your story's crazy.
Yeah.
So at what point did you go to Afghanistan? Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in Ramadi, so right next to Fallujah for the Battle of Ramadi. I was there for 15 months throughout 2006 and 2007. Mm-hmm. And then I left. I landed on my birthday, November 12th, 2007, back from Ramadi and deployed almost to the day a year later and went back to South Baladruz, which is by Baki, which is kind of the northeast of Baghdad, and did another year over there.
Yeah. I
came back, was back between Germany and the States for some schooling for about a year and a half. Then I left in, June of 2011. Yeah, June 11 is when I went to Afghanistan. Got back in June of 12. Finished up, about another 8-9 months in Germany there, and then that's when I went to England.
Wow. What would you say is like the toughest part of just the day-to-day living in such a it's a different world, right? It's like
over there.
I can imagine it's just hot.
Yeah,
desert.
it's
Kind of like Vegas.
yeah, exactly. Everything's kind of different, like, and everything has its own different kind of vibe and feel. Ramadi was urban; it was right on the Euphrates River, so it was kind of super hot, but also humid with the river right there.
Yeah.
Out by Bakbel, South Ruse, it was out in the middle of the desert, so hot and dusty. Afghanistan, I was up in that deployment anyway. I went back again in 2017 and 18 up in Bagram. But the 11-12 one, I was in East Paktika, right on the Pakistan border. So I was up at 9,000 feet up in the mountains, living on a little austere location up there. So
and how much of that time is it like is really like you're on edge because it's
24/7.
Really,
and it also
is that high alert?
Yeah,
basically?
so it obviously depends like where you're at and everything.
Yeah.
So I'll say like my first 3 deployments like that, it was pretty much 24/7. You were pretty much on edge because Ramadi, we were running around little safe houses and little outposts and stuff like that. So that deployment, our unit lost 109 troops throughout the whole deployment. So we were averaging about 1 a day for a while. It was so you
guys are on the ground, basically.
Yeah. So every
you're
day,
there, you're seeing it.
Every day was you never knew what was going to happen. South Ruse, when I was over there again, I think we had 53 vehicles we lost to IEDs and stuff. So again, I got hit. My truck got hit right underneath my seat. February 17th, of 2008, 09. My truck got hit, but I mean, that you never knew. It was just, again, you're constantly on edge. Afghanistan, way up in the mountains, we'd take rockets. We'd have 107 millimeter, 122 millimeter rockets come in probably 4 or 5 days a week. At least we're getting with rockets. And the whole little outpost we lived on was maybe 300 meters by 300 meters. So
oh my God.
They had us dialed in.
It'd be just so hard to sleep. You know?
So yeah, you just hear the incoming alarms going off all the time, and then we'd counterfire back, and then.
Wow. Oh my gosh! Well, thank you, man. That's amazing.
So
how long did that go on for? And when you get deployed over there, is there a set time? Is that how it works?
Yeah. So usually going out what it's going to be. So my second, third, and fourth deployments, we knew like the second and third were both 12 months. So the fourth was 9 months. We knew exactly what it was going to be
and
going in.
Do they switch it out?
So we have a unit. Yeah, we kind of high five.
Gotcha.
Called a RIP, but we high five with a unit that comes in and replaces us. My first deployment was supposed to be 12 months. At about the 10-month mark, we all got called in, and that's when the surge, our leadership at the time decided we're going to surge on Iraq. So we got extended from 12 to 15 months. So we were about 2 months from coming home and found out that we were going to stay for 15.
Did you bring any DJ gear?
No, out there it was,
How do you keep sane there? Like, what do you do? Honestly, obviously you guys are trained for these circumstances, but how do you, just personally, how did you keep, was it music? Did you listen to music at all? Or
music, movies.
Yeah.
And each one, honestly, all my deployments have been very, very different. The first one, I lived in like a little safe house outpost. There was actually an old Iraqi's house that we'd paid, and they left, and we basically bought the house for them, put walls up. And so the room we lived in, there were 3 of us out there, 3 Americans, and in the house next door, we probably had 60 to 80 Iraqi soldiers that lived in that house. But in our little house, it was honestly maybe the size of your kitchen over there. Like
3 guys in there?
3 guys in there. So we had 3 cots, a little stand with some radios on it, our weapons, et cetera, and that was it. So there we had this. I mean, this was 06, and we still had like our little DVD players. Like that was it. Like there were no iPhones or anything like that. There was no. It was like you either had your laptop or we had some like ripped movies on laptops and stuff. But that was pretty much it. But we didn't have much out there to really do. Like we were, extremely austere. Like,
we're just
like we had no running water. We only got I went back onto the base about once a month. I pretty much got to shower once a month. So that deployment. Next deployment, lived on another outpost. I was actually on between Hammer and Caldwell. Those were a little bit bigger. There we had some gyms, so at least that time, downtime was pretty much I got work. You're working 12, 15 hours a day, but during some downtime, I'd go hit the gym, just work out, lift weights, run, that sort of stuff. Anything that kind of keep your mind at bay or whatever, just kind of work yourself out. And then Afghanistan, that one, was something else too. We had a little gym, so again, you were trying to work out the best you could, but
I mean, hate to skim over that, but what after that, what part of Kansas how did that all happen?
So when I was in England, there I got selected to get promoted to major, and with that, we had what's called the Command and General Staff College, which is kind of best way to probably describe it, think of like getting like a master's degree in military tactics and operations and all that. It's a year-long school you go to. And so I got selected to go to that, and that's at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. So when I left England, I was living in Cambridge, partying in London and everything.
Yeah.
And they tell me, hey, you're moving to Kansas. And I went, like, I've been living the European dream, partying and all that, and I'm going to live in Kansas? Like, oh, crap. Like, what do I go? All right. And so I was able to live in Kansas City, and I'd only been there a few months when, lucky enough, I got to meet Maggie there and everything. And
you're like, that's actually, it was a blessing, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's blessing in disguise and all that. So it was awesome. Actually, I fell in love with Kansas City, loved Kansas City. It was a cool city, made some awesome friends there, and obviously met Maggie there too. So yeah.
How did you? And so like, was the move from Kansas to Savannah because of you? Did you change?
Yeah. So when I finished my schooling up there, when I finished the General Staff College, then you get back out to like the tactical force and everything.
Wow.
And so so we had our selection. You kind of go in there and put bids in on where you want to go and everything. I had some former partners and leadership that I knew that was at Fort Stewart in Savannah. Fort Stewart, Georgia. So they kind of put the word in and put in a request to bring me into there. So
do you like Savannah at all?
Love Savannah. Savannah was such a cool city. Again, made some awesome
It feels like an
friends
artsy city, huh?
It is. They got that whole SCAD college there and everything. So
got a lot of friends from SCAD. Yeah,
music, art, you name it. It's pretty awesome out there.
It's a lot of mosquitoes though.
Yeah. Lots of mosquitoes, lots of humidity.
So you lived, wow, you got a great story, man. So here, I'm getting a little bit of the timeline mixed up. Were you in Kansas, then got stationed to, is that how it worked?
Yeah, so I left. So I was in Kansas. I got to Kansas, I guess, in late 15.
Then you got 16. Deployed.
Yeah, and so I was in Kansas for about a year and a half or whatever, and that's when Maggie and I met. And then
so you met her and then got deployed.
And then I left in June of 17. We got married in July of 17 when I was moving from Kansas to Savannah, Georgia.
Sure, yeah.
So we got to Georgia probably, I guess I want to say like July, August. Yeah, August of 17, and I was out of there like the first, second week of October, back to Afghanistan.
Wow. Holy crap, dude.
Yeah, and then came back from that, did 2 more years in Savannah, and then worked my way out of the jobs over there, and that's how we got stationed here in Vegas then.
Yeah, so what was that call? Like, how do they actually even tell you that you are moving? Is it like, how much time do you get to move?
So usually you know that it's upcoming and all that. We have what's called like a YMAV date. It's like the year movement's available. So you kind of know, like there's a spot on the wall that, hey, here's the window, about a 4-month, 6-month window that I'm going to have to PCS, aka move.
Yep.
PCS, so you'll know in a ways out. And then usually about 6 months prior to that, up to that YMAP date, they'll open up like a marketplace where, hey, here's all the assignments that are available, and you get to pick. You can pick. You prioritize them 1 through 100 or however many there are, and you can kind of reach out to the units and you kind of talk with them, and sometimes you'll interview for certain jobs, et cetera. And then,
what made you pick Las Vegas? Had you been to Vegas before?
Yeah, so as a kid, I grew up in San Diego. And so I came up to Vegas a bunch. My grandparents have been living here since I was a toddler. My aunt and uncle lived here since I was a toddler. So yeah, I've been in and out of Vegas since my whole life. So I knew Vegas as a whole. I knew Summerlin and Henderson, and you know what I mean, and not just the Strip. And
sure,
I mean, granted, I had plenty of Vegas weekends where we did not leave the Strip. But
well, it's good to know the actual what it feels like outside the Strip, right? Then you get a gauge of it. It's very suburby, but also there's a city in the middle of it that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I describe it. It's like chill outside, you get on the Strip and you can go wild.
Yeah, I love it. So all the assignments were open up, got to pick and choose where I was going to go, talked with Maggie and everything. I talked with my boss at the time as well too and said, hey, is this a good career move for me? What do you think? And he went, absolutely, this job here would be great. So he made a phone call for me as well too. I interviewed for the job and picked it up right away. So
and I know we have Air Force bases here, and Maggie was kind of describing your position there.
Yeah.
You're part of the Army that kind of is with the Air Force?
Yeah, so we're on a small team. Like we're actually, it's a 4-man team. There's only 4 Army guys on the team total. So it's the Army Joint Support Team, Nellis. So there's only 4 of us there. We teach like 8 or 9 different courses on the Air Force Base and everything. Wow. And so we're like kind of the senior Army liaison instructors that teach all the ground ops and how to integrate airstrikes with the ground forces and all that.
Wow, dude. I'm calling you if stuff goes down, dude. I got the Lieutenant Colonel on speed dial. Dude. So here's a dumb question. As a civilian, like, do I have to call? I haven't been calling you sir, but do I have to call you sir?
No.
That's not how it works, right?
No. It's all good.
It's all good.
Some people kind of take that and I think they want to bring it home with them, and they're like, nope, on and off duty.
You're saying
like
some people do it.
Some people do it. Hey,
You're chill.
like I'm
Cool.
at work. I'm Colonel Jenson. You know, everywhere I'm Brian. I'm DJ BJ.
DJ BJ. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. The only exception, my niece. Yeah. So Bryn, I know she's might be seeing this later on. She's 10, 11, 12 right now, but so she knows it. Any guys that go that ever try to talk to her, you know what? She's like, first you got to go talk to the Colonel.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, that's the only
I get
time
that. Well, I'm curious now because I just realized I did see it on your Instagram about the MMA stuff.
Yeah.
How long have you been in that sort of martial arts world?
Since 2000, 2002-ish.
Okay.
My first fight was in 02. I would say 02,
And
03.
did you fight professionally?
Yeah, I did. So I fought in the States and I fought all over Europe as well too and everything. So
is it jiu-jitsu?
So I do jiu-jitsu. That was a portion of it. So I boxed. I also fought MMA. And then
And MMA is everything.
Everything,
mixed martial arts. Yeah,
yep.
just like the UFC basically.
Yep, exactly. So did that for 12, 13 years or so. And about the time I left Germany and I got to England, so looking at around 2012, 13-ish, kind of had taken some injuries and a couple surgeries and all that. So it was kind of like, you know what, let me transition to more like the coaching, teaching, refereeing side where I can still train and, you know, do what I can and all that. So, and from that time, that's when I finally put on the gi. So the true Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with the gi, I put that on there. And
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a little bit more like grappling.
Yeah, it's just the grappling.
Breaking your arm.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's basically it.
So yeah, up until that point, I trained it, but I'd always trained no gi. So just, you know, with like the board shorts and a rash guard on. And so around 2012, 13 is when I put the gi on, put on the pajamas, if you will.
Yeah.
Started learning that.
But for mixed martial arts, though, you kind of have to know everything, right?
Yeah, you do.
Because
so,
your opponent can hit you with like a taekwondo
yeah,
kick.
so I
like
trained boxing.
Muay Thai
I trained a Muay Thai.
Yeah.
I trained jiu-jitsu, submission grappling, wrestling, you know.
Wow.
I kind of like, yeah.
I always see that because, you know, I did taekwondo when I was little.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I took one Krav Maga class, and they kept correcting me my stance, because it's more of like a fencing stance, right?
Right.
And like boxing stance a little bit more. It's like all the stances are different. So for mixed martial arts, I've always wondered, how do you choose the stance? Like, do you just look at your opponent?
It's kind of like a hybrid, and part of it's opponent, part of it's what your strengths are. So boxing, you'll blade yourself a lot more. Like think of like a sheet of paper. So it's thin because all you're worrying about is those punches coming down. Well, it doesn't work so good for, say, MMA, because now they can throw kicks at the legs. Now that you're not in a good stance to sprawl, say someone shoots in for a takedown. So you got to kind of like know who your opponent is. You got to open up a little bit more. And so there's a lot that'll go into kind of developing your own stance. So you got to be able to sprawl, kick, knee, box, punch, move.
It's a tough one. I always look at it and I'm like, I would never try that because I wouldn't know where it's coming from. You know, at least some of the taekwondo stuff, you know that it's happening. It's just kicks.
Very kick heavy.
Barely punch you, you know, if that, and then you can kind of see it. But dude, that's awesome. Well, let's talk about some of the DJ stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you do any DJ? I've seen you at parties, at Felicia's party.
Yes.
You DJ there.
So
do you just do it as a hobby now?
So I'm still trying to break in. Vegas scene is very different. The way that I've seen. I guess we moved here also during COVID, so a lot of stuff was shut down and things opened up. They kind of went back with their kind of known DJs already, but a lot of the places here book through entertainment agencies and all that. So I was trying to get plugged into an entertainment agency, and you got to get signed by them, I guess. So I'm trying to work and figure out who I can get signed by, et cetera. But so like right now, I DJ at the F45 gym here in Summerlin. I'm actually doing it tomorrow morning. So I do some of their classes there. I do parties, weddings, events, anywhere I can get booked. I drop my cards everywhere. Just trying to plug into the DJ scene here in Vegas. Before this in Savannah, I was doing rooftop bars, nightclubs, everything there. Kansas City, I was DJing in the Power and Light District downtown, Bar Louie.
It's definitely who you know, man.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those things. Like the entertainment industry in general is just kind of like that, right?
It's really, really weird.
It's very tight knit, and then like it's who you know.
It is, and it's been like that. And like every city I've gone to has been really, really weird. Europe had its own thing and how they booked you. Kansas City was very different too. That they kind of had, each place had its own kind of resident DJ.
Sure.
And that resident DJ then booked out. So if you made buddies with the DJs, and they would kind of help book you. And so I was
kind of like bands, they'll you know pick the opening act. Usually.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how I kind of got plugged in there and got some of those gigs and all that, and made friends, just kind of networked as well. Savannah was pretty much, it was all usually like the GMs of the restaurants and stuff did it. So plugged in there and, send out my website or this or that, or gave them some samples, and they're like, oh, cool. So they started booking me that way and kind of word of mouth.
Vegas seems like the perfect town for DJing though.
Yeah.
There's always restaurants opening. There's always, there's always something happening,
Yeah. And so still just trying to make that network right now. And again, I'm plugged in, and a couple places too. They're like, oh man, yeah, we're just opening up. And I gave them the card, and they're like, oh yeah, sorry man, actually my buddy knows this DJ and he's gonna play, but I'll keep your card and I'll let you know. And man, I just keep no,
that's cool.
behind. But again, I know, like I said, a lot of it was also COVID kind of coming in, and you got people here too. There's a ton of DJs that are in Vegas that are awesome, and a lot of them are full time. That's all they do. So
yeah, I've seen I've seen the DJs during the COVID. They just started doing streaming. They just started opening up the live stream and just messing around on in their living room for a while. So man, that's very cool, dude. I wanna ask about like the program. We're gonna get a little nerdy here on the DJ program.
No worries.
So from vinyl to the digital transition, how did you go about like transitioning, I guess is my question. Like, back in the day, you'd bring
the cards and all that. Yeah. So now they got a little bit. It's kind of like a combo now and all that. So here in the States, most everybody uses Serato. That's kind of the new software that everybody's using.
I was going to ask, do you still use Serato?
I don't actually. I use Tractor. Okay. And so Tractor is what like Carl Cox and a lot of the big European DJs use over there, and because they tend to be a little bit more house centric music, obviously over in Europe. The States a little bit more hip hop centric. Yeah. So kind of my take on it would be, I think Tractor's a little bit better on the house music mixes. Serato's better for like your scratching and all that type of stuff. Now you can play it on both, but that's maybe my little 2 cents from what I've seen.
I mean, do you have to do like a lot of research as far as music? Like, I can imagine just like, here's my thing about the DJs. I'm like, how do they know all the music? Do you just spend time listening to tracks?
Just spend time listening to it. There's a couple, there's obviously stuff you can go out and sign up for and pay for and all that type of stuff. There's a European company thing that they headed up over there too that I'm still a part of. That was, you can pay for it now, but they have kind of another group that was quote unquote professional DJs. And luckily Chris, the guy I told you, Chris Hawks, brought me in on. So we get the music on there. They'll drop it on there about 6 months or 3 to 6 months prior to it coming up, kind of on a public release. And a lot of it's the new music coming out. It might be, hey, here's the new music, and then it got remixed by David Guetta, Aoki, Calvin Harris, Tiesto,
How do you get the stems though? How do you get like the stems of the audio stems, like the voices and just the bass, and how do you get all that stuff?
So similar programs and all that. That's where you can
pay for that stuff?
So some you can pay for it. You can be part of the groups. Luckily, I say the one I'm part of, I get emails probably 2-3 times a week, and so sometimes I just kind of go through it, filter through all of it, pull what I want, discard what I don't want.
I gotcha. I remember back in the day, you just found a B-side with the instrumental.
Oh yeah,
on vinyl.
Exactly.
You just be like, oh, this.
Go to the B-side, flip it, instrumental,
and there's an instrumental. I'm like, oh, that's how they got it. But now I'm like, there's so many resources. I just don't know how
and so you can do that, and you can cut out, and some will post like a cappella versions where it's going to be just the vocals or just the hooks or whatever. So it's kind of taking those. And
do you find it easier now since you don't have to lug around all your stuff, or do you miss like the vinyl aspect? Because I know there's like the snobs, right?
Yeah, so the vinyl's always fun to play. It's kind of that like retro. It's kind of, I say it's like a classic car.
Sure,
taking it back and taking out a 57 Chevy, like it's fun. There's a lot more work that's going to go into some of those old cars to drive and everything, but it's still fun to do every now and then.
Yeah.
So like even now with the Tractor, I have my controller, so I've got the digital platters, but then I can connect vinyl in off of the side as well too for my C&D decks.
Oh, cool.
And so what they'll do a lot of times too is then on those C&D decks.
What is C&D?
So like you'll have A, B, so like I have 4 inputs or outputs or whatever. I can have 4 essentially, think 4 turntables going at a time, or 4 records 4 songs at a time.
That's how much you do now?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So I can go 2 on,
it feels like there's a lot of multitasking.
Yeah, so you can go with, I can have 2 on the digital platters, like the digital turntables, then 2 more songs off of the vinyl. So I can be mixing up to 4 songs at a time.
Holy crap. Has the technology gotten so advanced that there's like, you can just quantize things?
Yeah, so it's like, it's crazy because you'll see folks that are kind of like up and coming DJs of it that, for example, like the beat mashing and all that. Like I was blessed that Chris taught me the old school way of audibly, like doing audio and listening.
You have to actually hear the beat.
Where now that a lot of the controllers, the decks and all that, now you can sit there and hit a sync button and it automatically sync up the BPMs of all the songs.
which is like
so it's
easy.
It's super easy. So yeah, folks that are doing that. The problem is just like anything digital though, it doesn't happen. It doesn't work flawlessly every single time. So some of the times you'll hear them where they'll go song A is at 124 BPM. Another one's going to be at 126. But it doesn't possibly sync up because of the software didn't sync it up or read it quite possible.
I'm gonna get super nerdy.
Yeah,
how do you like? I'm gonna get super nerdy. How do you understand the pitch? Is it all by ear? Originally, are you just listening to the? How do you know like if a song's in A or a key of C? Do you research the chords?
So some of it, like when you download it, it'll spit it out for you and all that too. There's a way you can see it when you do that. Some you can do it audible.
No, but like before. How did you do it before?
Oh, so even off of the vinyl and all that, it'll still get read through the digital program. So even off the vinyl,
Serato tells you?
Serato or Tractor will still spit that information out.
Oh man, I bet a lot of people tuned out by this nerdy stuff.
So example, so when you're going the true old school vinyl, you're kind of going pure off audio. Now what you'll do is you'll have, essentially they're kind of like blank vinyl records on there.
I've seen
and you have
those,
the needle, but it's reading, so it's actually playing the digital music through the vinyl record and then sending that sense like back into.
Oh man, I got to see your setup one day.
So if that I don't know if that makes sense. So
if I see you at a party, I'm gonna lurk behind you and watch you.
Yeah. So in a way, actually, it's nice now that I can bring in my laptop where I have 10,000 gigs of songs and stuff on there, and I really don't have to bring in two vinyls because it's just two blanks that sit on the vinyl platters, and it'll have that vinyl pitch to it and everything.
Yeah.
And so I can still scratch like it's vinyl and everything, but it's reading off of like my MP3s.
I can imagine it gives you a little bit more of just creative freedom to do things as because the technicality is kind of there, it's covered, so you're able to do more creative stuff.
It is. It makes it so much easier now, and that's where. Yeah, before you'd sit there, be trying to fumble, all through the vinyl to make sure you've got all the right records on. You're trying to flip.
I think it's kind of the same with cameras, right? Yeah. Like right now, it was really hard to take a picture back in the day when you did it with film.
You'd sit there and twist
it. And now you're just, these cameras are so high tech.
Absolutely.
You're just able to compose and just be more creative, and the technology doesn't get in the way. So I can imagine it's kind of the same.
So it's the same, and that's where I would just say that the good thing is I'm really happy I learned that old school because it's helped me use the technology, I think, to take it to another level. But then when the technology does have that glitch, I can listen audio so the beats will match up and sync. I can hear it through my headphones before I put it out to everybody. And sometimes you'll see some young DJs that haven't learned that. They just relied on that sync button. And then all of a sudden when they drop and it offsets, you'll kind of get like the shoes in the washing machine. Instead of the bass going doosh, doosh, it'll like da-doosh, da-doosh, da-doosh.
Yeah.
And so you kind of hear that.
Perfect.
No, and they kind of do they kind of got a quick cut in, cut out versus having that smooth transition of the music.
Oh, God.
Where if you can do it trained on the old school, you can hear audio through your ears, through your headphones. You can sit there and mess it, slow down the BPMs to get them to match. It was like those
scammer, like YouTube documentaries where they like pretended this person was actually mixing and like they would jump in. It was like faking it. They weren't even pushing buttons and stuff. There's like these little pranks they do.
Yeah.
All right, last thing I want to ask is obviously your big accomplishment of becoming lieutenant colonel. Like that's a big deal, right? Like I feel like that's all your hard work and just blood, sweat, and tears finally coming into like a big accomplishment for you. Because I mean, you're right up there. That's like the sixth person down, right? If there's the general, lieutenant general, there's like four generals basically.
Yeah. 1 to 4 star,
and then two colonels, right?
Full-bird colonel and lieutenant colonel.
Yeah. So how what was that process getting to there? Like obviously. You spent all this time in the military, all this studying, all this hard work, being deployed. What was that like being pinned at the stratosphere among all your peers and stuff like that?
That was awesome. It was kind of that metaphor. It felt like I was on top of the world for it, but it was kind of surreal having it happen. I never thought that day. I still don't feel like a lieutenant colonel. I still look and think like lieutenant colonel, man, those are old crusty colonels, man. And I'm like, wait a second.
Well, okay, I'm a civilian. I don't know anything. Yeah. What is that? What do you got? What does that mean? I don't even know what that means.
What is that, lieutenant colonel?
Yeah, like what is? Are you just? Yeah, tell me. I don't even know.
Yeah, so kind of the next big job the lieutenant colonels are going to fill would be the battalion commander. So all your battalion commanders, which will command roughly, say, 800 troops or so out there. That's that lieutenant colonel level of command.
Does that mean you're not going on the field though anymore? Are you more in the training side?
No, like my position right now is still there. So my job, so lieutenant colonel would be like the rank. So my job right now would be like as the joint fires instructor. But if I go out to a line unit, I can compete for battalion command. So like if you remember the movie We Were Soldiers, okay, so Mel Gibson played Hal Moore at that time, and at that time Hal Moore was the lieutenant colonel, battalion commander. So that would be like the position I would fill on the battlefield, for example.
Wow. And so like going back to the stratosphere and just having that moment, was that like, it's up there, you're pretty much like on the top of Vegas.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was awesome. It was just great because I had my family was to be able to come in. My parents were there, sisters, brother-in-laws, nieces, nephews. Maggie was there to pin me. Had my wife be able to do it for me. Cool. That was awesome. And just my aunts, my uncles, my grandma was there, and just my jiu-jitsu coaches were there. I had my buddy John Erdy come down from Mammoth. I had friends from all over, all Army friends. Some of my original mentors, JB Spizo, et cetera. So it was insane to have the love and support there for me, because I always say everything's a team sport, and it's not. I didn't get lieutenant colonel because I was some superstar and I did it alone and I was out there. It's like, no. Everybody that was in that room, and there was hundreds of people that couldn't make it, that weren't there, that they got me there. I was just kind of the, you know what I mean?
So how do you even qualify for that? Is that like, they just over time you
Yeah, so you kind of have you kind of have windows where you're up for promotion, but in between those windows, you have to have accomplished certain jobs and performed at a certain level. And we get evaluations every year, so those evaluations and your performance have to meet the criteria and all that too. So it's kind of the combination of both time and performance. So.
Dude, that's badass, dude. Yeah. Hell yeah. Wow. Well, this was a great podcast, man. Let me know, let the audience know where they can find you, your DJ name or whatever you want to promote, dude.
Sure.
Let me know.
Oh, sure.
For people not watching the podcast.
Yeah, no worries. It's #DJBJ, so DJ Brian Jenson. So literally my website is # spelled out HASHTAG DJBJ.com. Instagram is literally spelled out #HASTAG DJBJ. So I'm on there. I'm trying to get a SoundCloud put together right now. I'm trying to put together my first few mixes so I can drop good, 45-minute, hour-long sets to kind of get some more flavor and hopefully kind of pump into that Vegas crowd a little bit so I can get some more spots.
Hell yeah, dude. Maybe get you on Life is Beautiful or something. That's a huge festival.
Yeah, I would absolutely love any of that stuff, brother.
Thank you so much, Brian. It was actually an honor to talk about all that stuff, dude. I feel inspired. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you do for the country. Thank you so much. Make sure to support Brian. We're out.